The guitar's secret history, from ancient empires to rock legends. It began not with a thunderous power chord or a flamenco flourish, but with a single, resonant twang on gut strings stretched over wood. The sound was primitive, raw, imperfect. Yet somewhere in that moment, a revolution began. One that would echo through cathedrals, taverns, concert halls, and smoky nightclubs for centuries to come. This is the story of the guitar, a story of wanderers, empires, rebellion, and reinvention. The guitar's roots stretch far deeper into history than many assume, twisting through the sands of Mesopotamia and the courts of Moorish Spain. Long before Hendrix lit his guitar on fire at Monterey or Segovia elevated it to classical royalty, its ancestors were humming melodies in ancient civilizations. The oldest known representations of a plucked string instrument resembling a guitar date back over 3,000 years, etched into stone in Hittite ruins near modern-day Turkey, the tambur of Persia, the oud of the Middle East, the kithara of Greece, each a branch on the guitar's tangled family tree. The oud, in particular, played a vital role. It was fretless, teardrop-shaped, and resonant, and it found its way into Europe through the Moors' conquest of the Iberian Peninsula in the 8th century. While the war for the soul of Europe raged above, music slipped quietly between borders. The oud, once feared as foreign, seductive, and exotic, slowly transformed within the hands of Spanish luthiers. They added frets, adjusted the tuning, reshaped the body, and what emerged was something new. They called it the vihuela. Now, the vihuela is not a household name today, but in 15th century Spain, it was everything. A favorite of noble courts and educated elites, the vihuela looked more like a modern guitar compared to the lute, its northern European cousin. It had 6 or 7 pairs of strings tuned in unison, and was used to play the intricate polyphonic compositions of the Renaissance. For a time, it was the guitar. But fashions change, and so does sound. By the late 1600s, the vihuela faded, overtaken by a simpler, more direct instrument, the 5-course baroque guitar. It was smaller, punchier, and favored strummed rhythms over delicate counterpoint. Popular among both aristocrats and street performers, the baroque guitar had crossed the threshold from courtly sophistication into the realm of popular entertainment. It wasn't just an instrument, it was a cultural equalizer. Then came the 18th century, and with it, a man named Antonio de Torres Jurado. If the guitar had a founding father, it was him. Torres wasn't the first to build guitars, but he was the one who transformed them. By enlarging the body, thinning the top, and perfecting the fan bracing system, he unlocked a tone that was louder, warmer, and more expressive than anything before. His guitars were not just louder, they sang. The Torres guitar became the template for the modern classical guitar. And yet, at that very moment of refinement, another transformation was underway, not in Spain, but in the Americas. Across the Atlantic, guitars were migrating with immigrants and sailors, cowboys and travelers. In Mexico, they became the backbone of mariachi ensembles. In the American South, they found their way onto porches and plantations, mingling with African rhythms and folk ballads. These guitars were cheap, rugged, often homemade, and in the hands of black musicians in the Mississippi Delta, they birthed the blues. Robert Johnson, the mythic bluesman who, legend says, sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads, used such a guitar to create songs that would echo through rock and roll. It was raw and emotional, filled with yearning and rebellion. The guitar had become a vessel for storytelling and resistance. Meanwhile, in Chicago, in Memphis, in New York, technology was reshaping sound. Guitars struggled to compete with horns and drums in big bands. Then, in the 1930s, a wild idea sparked. What if you put a microphone on a guitar? Thus, the electric guitar was born. At first, it was awkward. Engineers mounted primitive pickups on acoustic guitars, which led to feedback and muddiness. Then came a breakthrough. A solid body. Les Paul, a restless tinkerer and jazz guitarist, experimented with a slab of wood he called the log, effectively one of the first solid-body electric guitars. Around the same time, Leo Fender, a radio repairman with no formal musical training, introduced the Telecaster, and later, the iconic Stratocaster. These weren't just instruments, they were weapons of cultural warfare. Enter the Age of Rebellion. Chuck Berry's Duck Walk, Elvis Presley's hip-shaking anthems, the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, Jimi Hendrix setting his guitar ablaze in an act of ritual sacrifice. The guitar was no longer just a tool, it was an identity. Through the 1960s and 70s, the guitar became the voice of youth revolution. Folk singers like Bob Dylan used it to protest war and inequality. Rock gods like Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, and Eddie Van Halen turned it into a vehicle for virtuosity and power. Each player shaped the guitar's legacy, bending it to their will, electrifying imaginations with every solo. But not all innovations were loud. In Brazil, João Gilberto strummed delicate chords that gave rise to bossa nova. In Spain, Paco de Lucia fused flamenco with jazz. In West Africa, the guitar took on hypnotic polyrhythms that would feed back into American blues and funk, completing a transatlantic loop centuries in the making. And then came the digital age. The 1980s saw the rise of synthesizers and drum machines, and some declared the guitar dead. But the guitar, like all great survivors, adapted. In grunge, it became angry and unrefined again. In indie rock, it grew introspective. In metal, it pushed into new dimensions of speed and aggression. Even in the 21st century, amid streaming and electronic beats, the guitar endures. Bedroom producers sample riffs. YouTubers become virtuosos in front of webcams. Taylor Swift strums her guitar in stadiums packed with screaming fans. A child picks up their first guitar and fumbles through a G chord, dreaming of stadium lights, or maybe just a quiet moment of expression. The guitar is not just an instrument, it's a mirror. It reflects our struggles, our joy, our history. It has been a tool of seduction, of protest, of worship, of fun. It has been beaten and broken, plugged in and looped, digitized and distorted, but never silenced. From ancient strings that goes back hundreds of years, to modern solos in streets, bars and clubs, from palaces to porches, from the hands of Moorish poets to teenage dreamers, the guitar has played humanity's song. And it's still playing today, after all these years. What do you think? Have you played or experienced an older version of the guitar? Or who is your guitar legend of all time? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more historical mysteries, right here on Obscura Historia.